We go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Anonymous Addiction Deprogramming Podcast with Bobby C. Today, we got my buddy Rob over here, Rob Decker. We were trying to get together for probably a couple of weeks. You know,
Yeah.
I met Rob on Facebook, and I don't really know how we got connected on Facebook, but we did. You know, it was meant to be. And I heard I heard his testimony. First of all, you got to go to Rob at robdeckerspeaks.com, and we'll mention that a couple of times. And don't forget to subscribe to Anonymous Addiction at my Deprogramming Podcast right here on YouTube. Rob's over here. He's in his workout room, and he's going to tell you a little bit about the stuff that we have in common. We're going to go back and forth and have a chat. And, you know, Rob's, hey, look, he's a father. He's a husband. He's a personal trainer. He's a health coach, CCAR recovery coach, best-selling author, Rob Decker. Here he is.
Thanks, Bobby. Man, you make me sound cooler than I really am, my friend.
What do you want to start out with, bro?
Whatever you got for me, man, I would love to. I know that. So the way that we actually met was, you know, I've personally struggled with the concept of AA for a long time. I've been exposed to it for a very, very long time. I had a lot of questions and doubts with it. And so my intention is not to slam anybody that's in AA. It's about sharing my experiences and the things that, you know, looking at it in a different light from my perspective. But you actually popped up on my Facebook, bro. And I'm like, where's this guy been? This is the kind of guy that I've been wanting to talk to about this stuff, because I think the challenge becomes a lot of people are afraid to open up about the things that you're opening up about, you know, for whatever reason, maybe judgment or shame or condemnation, whatever it is, man, you know, and I think that's part of the problem. So thank you for having me on your show. That's how we met, and let's get the party started.
Hey, we're here. We're there. We're doing it now, man. This is cool. You know, you talked about look, you know, here's what we have in common. I was raised, you know, first of all, you know, I was born and my mom passed on her Catholicism, Catholic religion to me. It's not that I chose it, she passed it on, and, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Most people do that in families. And I did all the rituals, you know, catechism and you know, the baptism from the baby childhood and catechism, and then did all my confession and Holy Communion and, you know, all that other stuff. And I know what religion smells like, feels like, tastes like, and sounds like, because I was in the religion. And I believe the Catholic religion is probably one of the easiest religions there are, really, because, you know, you could go in and you don't have to do much of anything, you know, and they don't have, I never went to a Bible study or anything like that until I went into Alcoholics Anonymous. I did go to some Christian Bible studies, but we have that in common. You want to talk a little bit about what were you like, Catholic Church? What was like when you were growing up, when you were a kid?
You know, it was all about rules and laws and fear in a God. Like the God that was painted to me was kind of like a mean one. You know, this loving father was kind of mean, you know, and then having to go confess some stuff to another person. Like, and as I got older, like, yeah, that totally didn't make sense to me. But, you know, there was things even at a very young age, you know, and a lot of like how Catholicism like infiltrated my home was just like, it was kind of this do as I do or do as I say, not as I do kind of mindset with my parents. You know, and so that was really, really hard on me, because, you know, what I found in religion, it's there's a lot of law and a lot of rule, and not a whole lot of love and grace and compassion and understanding. And, you know, there's lots of judgment, you know, and, you know, I'm a Christian now, but that came much farther down in life. But my initial relationship, if you can call that, with religion was through Catholicism and having to grow up in that. And, you know, getting rewarded. I remember like Sunday school, if you got up really fast with your, your Hail Marys and Our Fathers, we'll give you Tootsie Pops, right? Like, like
Yeah,
you're
right.
gonna give me sugar for being the
Yeah,
kid that jumps up the quickest.
yeah, right.
Count me in, man. Reward me for that. I
Yeah.
jump pretty well now, so maybe there's a correlation between my fitness and those Sunday school classes. But yeah, those were my early associations with the Catholic Church.
So when, after, like we said, check out Rob's story because it's amazing. It is amazing. And the whole thing is right on there at Rob at robdeckerspeaks.com. So check that out. And, you know, so you go through all this traumatic, this trouble, this pain of suffering, and you finally, through consequences of maybe cause and effect, you come into Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
What did you, in the beginning, would it feel like when you went through it? What was it feeling like, and how did you exit, kind of in a kind of a quicker manner?
So I think when I was in my early 20s, I ended up getting in a lot of trouble. And the funny thing is that I only got caught when I was drinking or using, right? I mean, when I was sober, there was no getting caught, right? Because you're just a little bit more mindful about what you're doing. And at some point, I had been in so much trouble that I was forced to live in a sober living environment. And one of the requirements to living there was to attend AA. One, I wasn't ready to quit drinking. So let's be realistic there. I mean, when you're forced into a situation like that, you're doing it to please the courts. Like you're not ready. But, I would sit in it and I would just hear some of these stories and I would see some of the behaviors. Like you would hear someone who was like 30 years sober, right? And this is way before I found faith. This is way before like I even had, I'm where I'm at today. And I would hear people tell their stories and I would hear the brokenness and I would hear like, and they would say, if I didn't make it today, I'd be at the bar drinking. And I was like, man, you're 30 years strong of sobriety, man. Like to me, your issue isn't with drinking, because the one thing that I understood was my drinking and using was a byproduct of my unresolved trauma. In my childhood experiences, like I was numbing myself. And then in the process of numbing myself, I created these horrible habits, and then you're always in an environment where drinking and using is part of the program. And so I would hear these things, and then I'd hear some people get elevated really high. Like people would worship these people that were sober for so long. And I really struggled with all that kind of stuff. So very early on, I questioned a lot of stuff, like, in the doctrine or the literature is talk about I'm powerless to alcohol. Well, I never really felt like I was powerless to alcohol. I felt like I was using it for a purpose, right?
Right.
I was not dealing with my junk and I didn't know how to do it. I wasn't ready to do it. I wasn't ready to rip the Band-Aid off those wounds. And so those were my early experiences. And of course I went through the process because I had to get out of that sober living environment. But it was later in life when I'll try not to tell my testimony too much, but eventually what happened was, through my childhood trauma and experiences, I continued with the drug and the alcohol use, and I continued to get into these destructive relationships. And just like when it came to relationships, I had a relationship with drug and alcohol, right? And I needed more. I needed more of it, like, because more is better, right? Because you're seeking something. When I first started using and drinking, that initial euphoria was the feeling that I was trying to chase all these next years, right? And I got into a really bad relationship, and within that, I ended up getting accused of rape and attempted murder. And I started jumping, I jumped headfirst out of a window because I want to take my life, and I was intoxicated, right? Now, if that situation had came up when I was sober, would the result been the same? But, suicide, and that's for another day. But, that was something I always struggled with because of my lack of self-esteem and self-worth growing up, right? So suicide was something I struggled with. I end up surviving the suicide attempt, and I end up breaking a bunch of stuff, and I'm told I'm never going to walk again and all this kind of stuff. Well, in the hospital, they were feeding me pain medication, right? So you're giving a guy that loves to numb his brain more stuff to numb his brain with. And so after they told me I'd never walk again and all this kind of stuff, and never work out or play sports, and I'd be living off a disability, and I would be medicated for the rest of my life. Those were the words of the doctors and the nurses and all that kind of stuff. And at that point, I realized there was a greater purpose to my life when I survived that, but I still struggled with the alcohol. So over the next 4 years, I continued to drink to numb my pain and all that kind of stuff. Well, I kind of had like this holy God moment where I got behind the wheel of my wife's car. Well, she was my girlfriend at the time. Got behind the wheel of her car. I ended up getting trashed. I was loaded. I just started. So I rebuild my body. I get a job. I'm off all the medication. My life is good. Like, I got this young lady in my life. She's absolutely amazing, but I'm still struggling with the bottle. And again, I don't believe it was the bottle. It was the pressure of being successful and having to work so hard, and really questioning my value, because a lot of my value was based on performance. So I was always a pretty good sales guy because I performed well, because I would work harder than the next guy. I would obsess over it, just like I would obsess over getting loaded. And then I ended up crashing her car and ended up in a creek and then under someone's house. And under that house, what I realized was my whole life was given back to me, and I'm throwing it away for drugs and alcohol. Like, in that moment, I realized how good my life really was, that even though some really bad things happened to me in my life, so did some really good things. And even when we got loaded, man, how many times did we actually get caught for the things we did? How many times did you and I get behind the wheel of a vehicle? And I started to look things at like that, like from the age of 18 to 29 or 32. How many times was I drinking and driving? I only got caught once. I saw that as grace, bro. And I started really accepting the fact that I was just numbing myself. And that's when I quit drinking. I just quit drinking altogether. And my mother-in-law, she was an AA, right? So she comes over. So after I crashed the house, she drives from Southern California to Northern California to come over. And, I'm a believer, bro. My faith is in Christ. And I thought hers was too. And it is. But I think that she first got saved in AA and then found God there, right? And so that's kind of her foundation. And so when she came to me and she opened up the big book, and she had me repeat something about being powerless, which in my heart, I did not believe at all. And instead of just praying over me, or connecting with me through my faith, that was the angle she took. And my wife, she wanted me sober, man. So she requested that I go to AA because it provided some structure, a foundation, accountability, which I agree with, man. I agree. It does provide those things. But then again, like everything that I experienced the first time around started to happen the second time around. And, when I really started dropping nuggets in those meetings, like people just didn't really want to have anything to do with it. And it felt very cliquish and cultish, and there was great division in it. And I wasn't allowed to have my beliefs. I think that was one of the greatest struggles, was I wasn't allowed to have my beliefs in that. I was, considered a dry drunk and someone who was white knuckling because I didn't want to go through the steps. I knew what my problem was, man. My problem was that unresolved trauma that I had to go face to face with and deal with. And again, I never went back to the alcohol, but yet being part of those groups, I got hit with certain labels and I got shamed. And, I disagree with calling myself an alcoholic. Nowhere in my life do I believe I'm an alcoholic. Am I genetically predisposed to maybe leaning that way? Possibly. If the science is there, possibly. But the reality is the more I unpacked my past, I started getting free from all that stuff. And so, being almost a decade sober, if I were to walk on a stage and say, hey, my name's Rob and I'm an alcoholic, like that goes really against everything that I am. Like, no, I'm not. I'm free and delivered, and I'm way past all that kind of stuff. And that's just not where I'm at these days,
Rob, let
If
me go. So how long ago was it? About 9 years ago? It's 10 years ago
Yep.
that you got
it'll be
introduced.
10 years ago, January 8th.
Okay, so you got introduced after that accident. Your mother-in-law comes over. She introduces you Alcoholics Anonymous, and you
Yeah.
weren't a sober living home, so you really heard Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm sure you probably
Yeah.
went to meetings way back then in your sober living house, because that's all they have is NA and AA meetings.
Yes.
Here's my question, because I know you a little bit because we've talked on the phone a couple times, and the last time we tried to connect, you were putting your kids to bed, and your wife was there and stuff
They
like
had a
that.
different plan, dude.
But here's the deal. Here's what people like, even mother-in-laws and fathers, and even your family and your wife, especially, or your girlfriend, they can't fix us.
No.
They all they want is the best for us, and they know they can't fix us. And where do they send us? They send us to Alcoholics Anonymous. But here's the weird part I want to get into, is that I hope I could say this, but your wife kind of like, didn't ever want to marry an alcoholic, and didn't really like
Right.
to have a relationship with a man in Alcoholics Anonymous to begin with, but that's how it happened in the beginning.
Right.
And you said a couple things before. How long did you stay in Alcoholics Anonymous until you, because, my hats, on one of my big hats, I have no more labels, because I agree with you. Forget the disease concept.
Yes.
Forget the alcoholic, addict names.
The titles. Yeah.
Forget the celebration over and over and over, and
Yeah.
constantly 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 years celebrating something that we're supposed to really be doing anyhow, naturally in life, and I agree with you with all that stuff, and let's talk about you were in Alcoholics Anonymous. How long
Yeah.
were you in, and
Oh, man,
when did you exit?
So, man, that's great. So yes, my wife, and I shared that with a reason so that we could share it. She grew up in AA, man. And so, the thing about what she saw was someone replacing the codependency on drugs and alcohol to now the group, right? And it took away from her childhood. And that's a very common story. That's a very, very common story. I have a lot of friends whose parents were part of the group or the organization, and they'll say like, my parent lived there and that's all they did. And that's their friends. And like, but they didn't hang out with me. Right. Again, there was other underlying issues that needed to be addressed so that you could be a good parent. Right. And so my wife didn't even know the extent of my alcoholism, because when we first met, I did my best to try to hide it. So there would be days that I would go without drinking, but man, I was like always trying to numb myself. But I think that I only could last maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks of going. And I just, I remember it was my second week. So I got a second week, a 1 year and a 3-year story. So my second week, they're like, hey, Rob, let's hear your story. And I'm thinking to myself, like, I thought that was a 30-day thing, but cool, man, let's share my story. So I share my story, and then I start getting more into the spiritual stuff, and not necessarily the Christian stuff, the spiritual stuff. Like, hey, man, did you know that alcohol meant flesh-eating spirit? In Arabic, alcohol means flesh-eating spirit. Did you know that pharmacy or drug use is pharmakeia, or witchcraft and sorcery? So I'm over here dropping nuggets on the class, bro. I'm like, here we are. We're performing some kind of seance on ourself, spiritually, because we're trying to get outside of ourselves. And man, people just like, it got really, really quiet. And you just hear people gasping for the air, gasping breath, right? And I was just like, man, this is deeper than what you guys think it is. Like, you're you're inflicting these spirits on yourself because your inability to try to resolve the other stuff. And again, I don't judge anyone based on where they are on their journey. But that was kind of my perspective. So I think at year one, I go to celebrate my 1 year anniversary, and I haven't been going through the steps, man. But my father-in-law was there, and I love him to death, and he's like 25 years strong in the stuff. And him and I actually quit drinking about a week apart from each other, different years, but a week apart from each other. And so I went, to kind of go celebrate that. Well, we went to a AA group at church, and I felt at liberty to talk about my faith. I mean, we're in a church, right? I get pulled aside at the end of that meeting and was like, you can't talk about that. You can't talk. You're going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. And I thought to myself, like, well, aren't we supposed to worship a God? Isn't there a higher power? Like, shouldn't I give into that? Like, that's what I'm sharing with you. But now, because of the God that I was worshiping, I wasn't allowed to mention the name of Jesus. Like, well, and I think another one of my struggles is, as many Christians in AA will say, well, AA has Christian foundation or Christian principles. Well, the reality is love thy neighbor should be pretty universal anyway, right? So anything can have Christian principles, right? But you've now just taken that away from me, right? You just kind of beat me down for it. Year 3, again, it was a birthday. I decided to show up for it. I show up and I'm asked to take a 3-year coin. And I'm like, I'm not going to take a coin. I mean, that's not how I got sober. I know how I got sober. I'm here to support. Well, okay, if you're not going to take a coin, that's okay. But I want you to sit with us. So I go to sit with them, and I was like, I'm going to be very clear right now because I saw the direction it was going in. I'm here to support somebody, and I'm not going to say that my name is Rob and I'm an alcoholic. That's lying to myself, right? And it's like, well, okay, just say you're here to support someone. It comes all the way to me, man. And I'm telling you, I mean, it felt so cultish. Not a word that I really love to use, but you feel me, Bobby?
Yeah.
There was an inner circle and an outer circle, and I was in the middle. It almost felt like an initiation or some kind of rite that I was a part of, right? And it gets to me, man. And I'm like, I'm Rob. I'm here to support my guy. I love him. Happy birthday, my guy. And dude, the evil looks and just man, you just see it in everyone's face, like complete rejection and anger because I wasn't one of them.
Let me touch something on that because I can relate to that. Here we go. So Rob's going against the stream. I felt this for a long time. I'm hypocritical. I'm going to some place that I really kind of reject a lot of the stuff they're saying, but I'm still going there. I got cognitive dissonance. Should I, shouldn't I? I'm going against the stream, and I'm saying things that they don't really like to hear. Oh. And here I am. I'm going to tell the audience right here. Audience, listen. There's no AA police. There is no AA police. Okay, so Rob takes it. He's got the courage and enough guts to say, you know what? I'm not raising my hand and calling myself an alcoholic. Okay, hey, I'll just pass. Boy, they get to look at it. As soon as you do that, they're going to, oh, he's a new or she's a newcomer. She really doesn't know the process of how did you have to declare yourself powerless and label yourself alcoholic. How can I actually be an alcoholic? I am a human being. Right. I'm not an alcoholic. I may have had some habitual tendencies to overdo drinking and drugging, but you're not going to label me anymore. So that's some real good stuff, Rob. Real good stuff. Continue.
Yeah, I mean, I was a drunkard, bro. Like, I mean, I got loaded. But I think when you label yourself that, for me, this is my personal perspective. It's just like you stay attached to that. Like, you need to be careful what you call yourself in this life. And you stay attached to that. And to me, it was a form of like bondage or slavery in a way. It's just like, why do I want to stay attached? Because there's no freedom in that for me. Like, dude, I can walk into a bar, everyone's getting loaded, and I'm like, I don't even have the desire to drink, man. And I know that there are camps that are like, man, you can't even go into a bar. You have no business. Like, yo, man, if my friends are in there and this is not something I do on a regular occasion and I want to go give them a hug and say high five and like, whatever the case may be, like I should not be vilified for walking into a bar, right? Because at one point in my life, I had an issue with alcohol. Um, yeah, so, after that 3-year incident, I told my wife, I can't do it anymore. I can't show up. Like, I don't even want to come and support anyone anymore. And like, now at this point, I'm being very cynical because it felt like an attack on me. I'm over here like, yo, they want to talk about addiction and alcoholism. I see people eating cookies, smoking cigarettes, and drinking coffee like it's going out of style. Like sugar's an addiction, right? Caffeine's an addiction, right? Smoking's an addiction. So how is it that we can focus on just the alcohol, but we're not going to focus on the other elements in life that are impacting us as well? And that was one of those things that didn't make sense to me. And again, I understand someone walking into the group because, man, they don't know better. They need somewhere to go, man. Like they need support. They need someone to be accountable to. I feel the same way about the gym. I'm a fitness coach. Like if you need to start going to the gym just to kind of get like in that fitness mode, but at some point, like you're going to have to learn some things and you're going to have to grow. I feel the same way of the church, bro. I have such a hard time going into a lot of churches and listening to what another man is preaching, right? Because it doesn't line up with what I know, because people have their own agendas, like, keep coming back, right? The pastor does that. The pastor's just like, well, if you don't come to church, you're going to lose your relationship with God. Like, no, that's exactly what's not going to happen. I actually walked from a church because the pastor was like, someone told me that they go climb mountains to get close to God. And I'm like, that's dope, right? That's a great time to get close to God. You're by yourself. You're just one-on-one, right? Well, no, you need to be at church on Sundays. Well, that's religious. And I disagree, right? Like, I believe in fellowship. I truly do. But, so I'm not just saying, hey, I struggle with AA, I struggle with the Christian church, bro, or religion. Everything that I've come upon myself was because I took my due diligence and I researched and researched and researched. And I even researched the fathers of AA, man. And I found some really big issues there. But if you share it with somebody, you were talking about cognitive dissonance, right? You can drop the freaking bomb on someone, man, and they will be like, nope, I'm just going to pack it back here and I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing. Here's the thing, Bobby. Even in my faith, if someone wants to question my faith and wants to throw some stuff my way, I am so willing to listen to it, man. I'm open to all that stuff because I don't think we all have it figured out. We really don't. I think that we keep messing it up because we're man, and man likes to have all the answers and create their own version of things, right? And so, I think a lot of times we get that we compartmentalize things and we, cognitive dissonance gets in the way, bro.
Let me ask you something about, I'm going to ask you a quick question.
Yeah.
What influence do you think that your wife had on where you're at today?
My wife?
Yeah.
Bro, like my wife, she was very, when I met her, so I'm about 12 years older than my wife. My wife was a senior in college and I had just gotten off a disability, or I was getting off a disability, getting off all my pain pills. I was getting back in the workforce and I met my wife and I saw this very intelligent, very structured young woman that, maybe she was a little bit older in her mind for her own good. She's way older than me in spirit or soul. Like, I'm a big kid, dude. But, I was very honest with her and I said, here's the deal. I have all this money tied up in child support. I have a child. I've been in a lot of legal trouble in my life. I owe the courts money. Like, man, I'm coming off a disability. I attempted suicide. I still drink. And she said, you know what? Let's work on that together. And this was a 22-year-old, young college student that was making some serious grown-up choices. And I'm like, dude, you're freaking amazing. Because I think what happens is, like, me at 33, I think it was like 33, 34 years old, dude, you've been so trashed by life. You know, you're still in the middle of getting loaded all the time. You know, my body was broken to pieces and I'm coming out of that. Like I was living in my friend's garage. I didn't have my license. Like, and she knew all that and she accepted that. And I think that love, I knew that she was going to love me and love me the right way.
Unconditional love.
Uh,
Right. Here, to the audience, I just want to say that, these are the pointers to the way. People, they inspire us. They give us things that sometimes we give credit, like we give credit to Alcoholics Anonymous for sobriety, but we're not giving credit for the people, people in our lives that were there and stayed with us. We're giving credit to Alcoholics Anonymous. We're giving credit to God. We're giving credit to Jesus. We're giving credit to motivational speakers, Eckhart Tolle, or any guru that we're watching. The credit, look close, because look at the people that were there, like my mother-in-law. Okay, she was there. My mother-in-law always had some good things to say about me, even during all my problematic drinking and using. My wife, she always was there, right? She was like an inspiration because she pointed the way. She sent somebody from Alcoholics Anonymous to my house, and I said yes. And when I said yes, it came from me. I said yes to help. Okay, so I personally take all the credit. I take the credit because it came from me. Now, do I give other people credit? Yes. And I like your outlook about it's not religion, about life actually, and about your belief. I like your outlook because I can relate to it. It more or less looks like that you are creating your own deal. Not it doesn't look like you are. You've been. It's almost like you've been creating your own deal with the help of the pointers to the way, and you're amazing, and all the people, human beings are just amazing. But I could just sense something that your wife had a really, like, especially with that car crash, after that car crash, because I think I was her grandfather's car, right?
Nice.
And you get in the car and you crash your car. It's like, that would have been the end.
Yeah, well, you know what, man?
That was the beginning.
Her recently passed grandpa had bought her this car, and so that was like the last thing, or the big thing, right? And here I am crashing a gift from a recently deceased grandfather. And when I showed up on the doorstep that morning, she told me, she was like, I laid in bed all night. I was at peace because I knew everything was going to be okay. Dude, she never got angry at me for the car, the drink. Like, it's just like unconditional love, bro. It's just like, you know what? We're going to do this together. And I am so greatly appreciative of my wife because, I know a lot of guys whose wives still drink while they're trying to break the habit, and so they have to be exposed to it. My wife actually quit drinking 2 weeks before I got into that accident because she said, if I don't want you drinking, honey, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it around you. I'm not going to encourage that behavior. And I thought that was absolutely amazing. And so, I married her.
It's been what, 10 years, 9 years now? How long you been married?
Almost 10 years now.
Yeah,
almost 8 years. 8 years. So we've been together for about 10. So 8 years married. It was like 1 year dating, 1 year engaged, 8 years married. Yeah.
Let me say hi to your wife and congratulations for both of you. I have a beautiful wife. I've been married for 50 years. I have 2 daughters, beautiful daughters, and I have 5 grandchildren. So I've been around a little bit, and I've been, in this recovery industry, scam, trap, or whatever you want to call it, for, over 38 years. And I just come to recognize some things, because of, like you're talking about, our consciousness is, or unconscious and subconscious is raising to the conscious level, and we're becoming aware, observing many different things and learning different truths and we're learning truths about lies and myths that we used to think were true, and they're not true today. So I think
we bought into a lot of lies, and I think the thing that
it was a very unique situation for me, as like, I'm a recovery coach, right? So there's a language that I speak in recovery. And I run 2 recovery softball teams, even though my belief isn't AA is the way, um, you know, if early on, if that's part of your process, again, I get that. And I don't want to, I'm not trying to bash my mother-in-law. I love my mother-in-law. She's amazing. She's a great person. If that is part of your process, but for me, it's like, you got to get to a certain point of wanting to continue to grow. And I think, and some people will say AA provides that for them, it just, for me, it was just it just didn't, and so I gotta, I work with a huge recovery church out here. Springs Recovery Connection is another group I work with. And then, it's recovery, mental health. And so, I try to meet people where they're at, and I'm not going to dog them out for a lot of stuff. It's just me personally, not a system I can stay attached to.
Right. No, I agree.
And if someone asks me, if they're like, well, why are you the way you are? Or why do you believe what you believe? Like, well, this is why, right? I mean, you have to be open to that. And I've been shunned quite often.
Yeah, but we're not, look, audience, people, we're not here, but I don't bash people.
Yeah,
we don't bash people. I'm talking about the organization and the pyramid structure of Alcoholics Anonymous, why it was developed, how it was developed, where it came from, the society. There are some bad people in Alcoholics Anonymous, okay? I'm not denying that. There's some predators and there's some psychopaths and there's
the
some
13th step.
Bitch. But here's the deal though. There's a lot of them in every other organization too. Okay, so it's just not Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a lot of bad people.
Well, it happens in religion too. Right?
In
religion, it happens in the church as well. Absolutely, 100%.
But most of the people, like your mother-in-law and my mother-in-law, and I knew so many beautiful people in Alcoholics Anonymous. So 100%. so many loving, beautiful, caring people in Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'm not bashing them. I'm not talking about those people.
Right.
We love them, and they're doing great, and they're helping people. And but we're just talking our stories and what we discovered, and what we kind of know to be true today.
Absolutely.
Now the recovery, when you talk about recovery, you're talking recovery. When I talk about recovery, I'm not just talking about alcohol and drugs.
Correct, 100%.
I'm talking about recovery from a lot of different things.
Well, again, so you have to understand, my perspective is using and drinking was, a byproduct of all the other stuff, right? And so, and that's my personal view. I have ball players whose brothers committed suicide, got murdered, women that have been sexually assaulted, raped, and abused, people that had, traumatic childhoods like myself, or been molested I was molested as a little boy. Like, when you carry that stuff through life, and recovery is, to me, is saying, hey, I have been a victim and impacted by all these things. And now I am going to take a deep look at it. I want to unpack it, and I want to heal, and I want to grow. And that's recovery for me. It's like what you and I have done is, we get rid of all of our junk, and we grow. And that's where I am with recovery. So it's not like, we have AA teams out here, but I'm not an AA team. I'm a recovery team. Now, if my ball players are in AA, dude, right on. You're making the right steps to have a better life, right? And that's where it all comes down for me, is people that want to really address a lot of stuff and want to grow and heal. Because the reality is that America is a very medicated country. We struggle with mental health on a whole nother level. And the answer isn't drugs and alcohol, right? It's, finding good tools and mechanisms to get freedom from all that kind of stuff, right. And that's what it is for me.
Right. And look, I understand it. Look, I'm not a prohibitionist. I personally believe in abstinence, but I believe everybody has the choice. I believe in the power of choice and the freedom and power of choice. But here's the thing with the alcohol and pharmaceutical industry is not going to go away. But I don't see too many people really giving the knowledge out how dangerous alcohol and pharmaceutical products are. You know,
There's money in it.
they're not, but they're not holding them accountable. They're always
No.
talking about us as victims, but they're not holding them accountable for it. Now, I believe in the power of choice, but I believe in the power of knowledge too. You know, I could go on and on and on. The bad
Well, think
stuff.
about, these guys have psychologists on their teams that manipulate human beings through marketing,
Exactly,
right? And
exactly.
then we've created, you know, it's normal for everyone to drink. That's normal thing. It's normal to get drunk. It's, you know, like all this is normal. And if you spend centuries pounding that into people, they're going to believe that to be true. Right. And so, you know, people have been deceived and manipulated with all of it. And of course, I mean, you see the whole vaccine thing, you know, no one wants to take accountability. They just want to pump out their product. And that's how it is with tobacco and alcohol, all of it. It's all a product. It's a product for someone to get rich. And you being in poor health is more beneficial to the system than us going to get sunshine, drinking water, getting good rest, exercising, eating well, right? Why aren't you ever pushing that? Because there's no money to be made in that. Like, you need me to be dependent and sick on you so that you can make money off me. And we're about to go into another podcast, right? Like,
Yeah. We could do
talking
that
about
the
this-
next.
this is-
Hey, we could do that the next podcast. Okay?
Yeah. You know, I'm a health and fitness coach, man. And I'll say this, that when COVID first popped off, and I'm not dismissing COVID as a sickness, what I'm saying is I saw the things that were behind it. And while all the gyms were shutting down, I kept my gym open, man. I kept my gym open because I know the power of taking care of yourself, for mental, physically, spiritually. And, you know, I was rewarded greatly for that. Not why I did it, but I was rewarded for it because I was willing to do something that just really made sense at the end of the day. People look back and like, dude, that's amazing. At the time, some people were very, you know, sketchy about it, right? They're very, but not me, never once, because I knew that what I was putting out there was for the better of the human being.
I'm on the same page with you. We did the same thing. It kind of we align, or we're like-minded in that sense.
Yeah.
Hey Rob, we're kind of course, you know, Zoom only gives you a certain amount of time
Yeah,
in this
absolutely.
podcast. But what would you like to tell the viewers before we sign off here? Just a short
Well, you
little
know,
message.
honestly, continue to pursue a healthy mind. Do your own research, right? I say be open-minded to a lot of stuff. I do believe in believing in something much greater than yourself. I do believe in a creator, right? So, self-love, man, and self-love is really I need what's best for me so that I can be the best that I can be for other people. I'm a family man. And that means I have to do my own research. That means I have to work out. That means, I got to stay on top of things. I'm just not going to be swayed by the TV and the media and other people's judgment and religion. And you continue to walk your journey, and heal, because healed people heal people. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's what we've been called as a community, is to, get away from our garbage and then pull other people out of the gutter. And that's pretty much what I do my best to do.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I'm going to give a shout out to my 101.5-year-old mother who's over there in New Jersey. She survived the COVID. She didn't even get vaccinated. She don't wear a mask. She's in the nursing home. She survived the COVID. Not that I'm not saying that, I'm just giving a shout out to my mom and her belief, and that's what she believed. That's what she survived, and I'm not minimizing any deaths.
Correct.
Because that's devastating.
Yeah.
And she's 101, and she had the COVID and survived it. So power to her, and I'll be calling her after this podcast and still today. So Rob, to everybody, do your thing. We're just giving a shout out. We're just telling our experiences, and hopefully you get something out of it. And I got a lot out of Rob's talk today, and I really appreciate you coming on with me, man. And let's do this again, will you?
We
Huh?
will. I would love to do something new. I mean, I got a lot going on my end. And so as I continue to build and grow, I'd like to share that with other people because, that's my way of giving back, right?
Yes.
I want to give back and give back. And I want to see people healed, man. I want to see people healed. And so it's a mission of mine, Bobby. Again, thank you so much for having me on, man.
And don't forget to check out Rob at Rob Decker speaks.com.
Yeah, robdeckerspeaks.com is my website.
And then
Yeah.
don't forget to subscribe, press the like button. Come join us on Facebook at Anonymous Addiction, My Truth About AA, as Bobby sees it. And I say that because we all should see it in our own way, in our own
Yes.
lights. Create your own program, create your own destiny. Take care, Rob. Take care, everybody.
Take care, brother.
Bye-bye. Stay on, brother.